Good morning, my name is Gill, and I own Texas Senior Living Locators in Austin, Texas. I'm a free consulting service helping people find assisted living, independent living, and memory care. Today we're going to talk about what does it look like during times of COVID-19 when we're trying to do a tour of community. So during normal times, and I mean February of 2020 and before, I would put people in my cars and we would go around together and tour communities. Well, during COVID, of course, nobody's allowed to visit the communities, not even families. So we're not allowed in to look at these communities. That's pretty awkward when you're trying to figure out which place to put your parent in. So what's it look like? What's the process for doing tours during times of coronavirus? Well, what we do is we do things by Zoom, by FaceTime, or by Skype. And we do these video tours in a similar fashion that we would have done them in person, but they're a little bit different, of course. By this point in the coronavirus pandemic, though, we're all used to doing Zoom calls. So the first part of the tour doesn't change all that much. What we do over Zoom is we sit on down with the admissions director and we talk about the discovery phase. In the discovery phase, we talk about what care needs the senior has, and then the admissions person talks about what the community can do to meet those care needs. This is part of the sales process where everybody's trying to get to know each other and they're trying to build a relationship. After we've gone through all those type of details, the admissions person will go ahead and reverse the camera and will take us on a tour of the community via Skype. This is an imperfect process for a couple of reasons. Number one, the camera bounces around all over the place and it's easy to get a little bit seasick following the camera as people hold the camera and pan around showing us what there is to see. Some places have put image stabilizers on their cameras and that makes it a much more pleasant experience as things don't bounce around. Second thing that happens though is as we go through the community doesn't look as good as it might during normal times. The reason for this is that sometimes they have certain parts of the community blockaded where, for reasons of social distancing, and people aren't out of their rooms, so there isn't near as much vibrancy as you'd like to see. Another thing that's not as ideal is you don't get a chance to see the caregivers interacting with their other residents. And you don't get to sort of smell the place and smell if the food smells good or if there's inappropriate smells or something like that. And you don't get a sense for how good the light is or how long the hallway is. It just doesn't quite feel as good. But look, it's the best that we can do, and business happens and life has to go on. So everybody makes a pretty good effort at getting things done. So once we've gone ahead and seen the whole community, what happens next? Well, we usually go back to the office, we sit down, we discuss next steps. Next steps, number one, include, okay, how much does it cost? And then number two, what happens if you do want to move in? Well, if you do decide to move in, we still have to build the file. By build the file, I mean there's an awful lot of paperwork required to move into any community in senior living. It takes a good hour and a half to do a move-in package. And then once you've done the move-in package, and by the way, this is usually done over email scans, but once you've done the move-in package, the community still needs to lay eyes on the prospective resident. Now, the prospective resident in many cases is in a nursing home doing rehab, or still in a hospital, or maybe another assisted living community, and the community can't go and lay eyes on them because they're restricted from going into these other facilities as well. So sometimes what will happen in these cases is they will do a video call with the prospective resident, or sometimes they have to sort of ignore the laying eyes portion and talk to the nurse who's in the community and figure out what's really going on with the resident. And of course, the reason they have to lay eyes on the resident is because they don't want any surprises. The community has to go ahead and build a care plan for every resident that comes on in, so that they're fully ready to meet the resident's needs when the resident arrives. So what's the next step? Well, that's moving all the furniture in. Most assisted living and memory cares do not include furnished rooms, probably 90% of them. So if you're not allowed in the community, how do you move your stuff in the room? Well, the answer to that varies by community. Everybody's got a slightly different protocol for how this goes. In most communities, what happens though is you would bring all your loved ones' furniture and all of their belongings and decorations, and you drop it off by the side door nearest to the room or the apartment where your loved one's going to live. Sometimes they'll keep that outside just to let the coronavirus die in the sunlight and the heat kill it. Sometimes they'll move it in immediately, but usually it's the staff of the community that's doing the move. A couple of places have gone ahead and contracted with their own or with a particular moving service, and that moving service has to wear full PPE when they move everything in. A couple of places are allowing loved ones to come into the community, but only they are escorted one time from the exit to the apartment. They're only allowed to spend a certain amount of time in the apartment setting it up. Usually it's an hour, sometimes it's 4 hours, but that's the only time somebody actually gets to go in the building. I haven't seen that particular case that much, but that's usually the way it ends up going. So coronavirus influenced touring isn't perfect. It's the best that we have during COVID-19, and we're all trying to make allowances and do the best we can. Families still need to move when their loved one isn't safe at home, where the loved one would be safer in an assisted living, or when there's caregiver problems. At these times, Texas Senior Living Locators is a great option to help you find a memory care or assisted living for your loved one. I'm Michael Gill with Texas Senior Living Locators.